60 yards ahead of us, there's just this like hovering orb like on the side of the road, and we don't know what it is, and none of the other cars seem to care or notice, but we pull over, and I'm the only one without a driver's license, so I'm like, "Dang, why don't you go see what the hell this floating orb is about?" So I get out, and it's about like 4 feet off the ground, and it just looks beautiful to the touch. And I stick my hand in it, and I don't feel like the sensation of like temperature or texture or or heat or anything like that. It just feels just like really good, just like yeah, man, like you just like cracked open a Coke and you're just like, oh great, this is it. And I get inside, and it's Gandalf and Spider-Man, and they're just standing there. They don't have any pants on, but they've got these huge dicks that are just like bigger than both their legs, and they're just sort of like swaying them back and forth, looking me in the eyes like, "Hey Dan, what's up?" And I just met both these guys at a party just like a couple weeks ago, and I'm not good with names, but I knew it was them, and they're like, "No, come on in, dude, it's cool." And like the dicks are just sort of like skirting the ground, like just like kicking up a couple of leaves. And they're like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "Oh, I'm on the road." And they're like, "Oh, you gotta." Gandalf's like, "Dan, you gotta look inside," like Peter Parker. "You gotta look inside his dick, like, check it out, dude, for real." And Spider-Man's like, "Yeah, Dan, it's cool," just, and he like picks it up and he hands it to me. And I spread his meatus and I look inside, and it's a little me like about to be sitting in a chair. And he's just looking at me like, "Can you believe it?" So I'm pretty pumped on that. And then Gandalf's like, "No, Dan, you should look inside my dick for real." And Gandalf's like a serious motherfucker, so I'm like, "All right." So I spread his meatus and I look in, and it's this like trippy polka dot octopus, and he's like, he is like a hookah, and he's smoking himself, and he's just like, there's just the dankest nugs like all around. And I'm like, "Oh, this is awesome." And I go back and I get the rest of the guys, and we look back in, and when I look back in, the octopus is in the form of a swastika. And the guys are looking at me like, "What the fuck, Dan? Like, what are you doing?" I was like, "No, for real, before it was all this weed and it was a hookah." And we look back in, and it's just a skull, and it just says "us" on it. We don't know what to do. So we get inside the skull, and it's really warm, and we sleep for a little bit. We wake up in this beautiful world of hair. Everything is hair. The ground is hair, and the air is hair. Trees are hair. You can tell what's what by the different texture and color of hair. We were just there for hours, just laying around and rolling through it and walking through it. We got to this big hair lake, and we combed across on this big comb boat. So I'm going to do a couple more songs. I did another one earlier, so I'm pretty tired, and I think, again, the pneumonia, which I don't have, and I'm sure it's just like boogers, but I'm convinced it's pneumonia because a braver man has pneumonia than me. What do you want?